This story is Goldilocks and the Three Bears. There was once a little girl whose hair was so bright and yellow that it glittered in the sun like spun gold. For this reason, she was called Goldilocks. One day, Goldilocks went out into the meadows to gather flowers. She wandered on, and after a while she came to a forest where she had never been before. She went on into the forest, and it was very cool and shady. Presently she came to a little house, standing all alone in the forest, and she was tired and thirsty. She knocked on the door. She hoped the good people inside would give her a drink and let her rest a little while. Now, though Goldilocks did not know it, this house belonged to three bears. There was a great big father bear, and a middle-sized mother bear, and a dear little baby bear, no bigger than Goldilocks herself. But the three bears had gone out to take a walk in the forest while their supper was cooling. So when Goldilocks knocked at the door, no one answered her. She waited a while, and then she knocked again. And as still nobody answered her, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. There, in a row, stood three chairs. One was a great big chair, and it belonged to the father bear. And one was a middling-sized chair, and it belonged to the mother bear. And one was a dear little chair, and it belonged to the baby bear. And on the table stood 3 bowls of smoking hot porridge. And so, thought Goldilocks, the people must be coming back soon to eat it. She thought she would sit down and rest until they came. So first she sat in the great big chair, but the cushion was too soft. It seemed as though it would swallow her up. She sat down in the middle-sized chair, and the cushion was too hard and it was not comfortable. Then she sat down in the dear little chair, and it was just right, and fitted her as though it had been made for her. So there she sat, and she rocked and she rocked, and she sat and she sat, until with her rocking and her sitting, she sat the bottom right out of it. And still nobody had come, and there stood the bowls of porridge on the table. They can't be very hungry people, thought Goldilocks to herself, or they would have come home to eat their suppers. And she went over to the table just to see whether the bowls were full. The first bowl was a great big bowl with a great big wooden spoon in it, and that was the father bear's bowl. The second bowl was a middle-sized bowl with a middle-sized spoon in it, and that was the mother bear's bowl. And the third bowl was a dear little bowl with a dear little silver spoon in it, and that was the baby bear's bowl. The porridge that was in the bowls smelt so very good that Goldilocks thought she would just taste it. She took up the great big spoon and tasted the porridge in the great big bowl, but it was too hot. And then she took up the middle-sized spoon and she tasted the porridge in the middle-sized bowl, and it was too cold. And then she took up the little silver spoon and tasted the porridge in the dear little bowl, and it was just right. And it tasted so good that she tasted and tasted and tasted and tasted until she tasted it all up. After that, she felt very sleepy. So she went upstairs and looked about her. And there were 3 beds, all in a row. The first bed was the great big bed that belonged to the father bear. And the second bed was a middling-sized bed that belonged to the mother bear. And the third bed was a dear little bed that belonged to the dear little baby bear. Goldilocks lay down on the great big bed to try it, but the pillow was too high and she wasn't comfortable at all. Then she lay down on the middle-sized bed, and the pillow was too low, and that wasn't very comfortable either. Then she lay down on the little baby bear's bed, and it was exactly right, and so very comfortable that she lay there and lay until she fell fast asleep. Now, while Goldilocks was still asleep in the little bed, the 3 bears came home again. And as soon as they stepped inside the door and looked about them, they knew that somebody had been there. "Somebody has been sitting in my chair," growled the father bear in his great big voice, "and left the cushion crooked." "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," said the mother bear, "and left it standing crooked." "And somebody's been sitting in my chair," squeaked the baby bear in his shrill little voice, "and they've sat till they've sat the bottom out." And he felt very sad about it. That's when the 3 bears went over to the table to get their porridge. "What's this?" growled the father bear in his great big voice. "Somebody's been tasting my porridge and left the spoon on the table." "And somebody's been taking my porridge," said the mother bear in a middle-sized voice, "and they've splashed it over the side." "And somebody's been tasting my porridge," squealed the baby bear, "and they've tasted and tasted until they've tasted it all up." And when he said so, the baby bear looked as if he were about to cry. "If somebody's been here, they must be here still," said the mother bear. So the 3 bears went upstairs to look. First, the father bear looked at his bed. "Somebody's been lying on my bed and pulled the covers down," he growled in his great big voice. The mother bear looked at her bed. "Somebody's been lying on my bed and pulled the pillow off," she said in her middle-sized voice. When the baby bear looked at his bed, and there lay Goldilocks, with her cheeks as pink as roses, and her hair golden, all spread across the pillow. "Somebody's been lying in my bed," squeaked the baby bear joyfully, "and here she is still." Now when Goldilocks in her dreams heard the great big father bear's voice, she dreamed it was the big thunder rolling through the heavens. And when she heard the mother bear's middle-sized voice, she dreamed it was the wind blowing through the trees. But when she heard the baby bear's voice, it was so shrill and sharp that it woke her up. She sat up in bed, and there were 3 bears standing around and looking at her. "Oh my goodness me!" cried Goldilocks. She tumbled out of bed and ran to the window. It was open, and out she jumped before the bears could stop her. Then home she ran as fast as she could, and she never went near the forest again. But the little bear cried and cried because he had wanted the pretty little girl to play with. The Three Little Pigs. A mother pig and her three little pigs lived together in a wood very happily all through the long summer. But towards autumn, the mother pig called her little ones to her and said, "My dear little pigs, the time has come for you to go out into the world and seek your own fortunes. You will each want to build a little house to live in. But do not build them of straw or leaves. Straws are brittle and leaves are frail. Build your house of bricks, for then you will always have a safe place to live in. You can go in and lock the door, and nothing can harm you." She then bade the little pigs farewell, and away they ran out into the world to make their fortunes. The first little pig had not gone far when he met a man with a load of straw. The straw looked so warm and smelled so good that the little pig quite forgot what his mother had told him. "Please, Mr. Man," said the little pig, "give me enough straw to build a house to keep me warm through the long winter." The man did not say no. He gave the little pig all the straw he wanted, and then he drove on. The little pig built himself a house of straw, and it was so warm and cozy that he was quite delighted with it. "How much better," said he, "than a house of cold, hard bricks." So he lay there snug and warm, and presently the old wolf knocked at the door. "Piggy Wiggy, let me in," he cried. "I won't by the hair on my chinny chin chin," answered the pig. "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in." The little pig laughed aloud, for he felt very safe in his new snug straw house. "Well, then huff, and then puff, and then blow my house in," he cried. Well, the old wolf did huff and puff, and he did blow the house in, for it was only made of straw, and then he ate up the pig. The second little pig, when he left the forest, ran along, and presently he met a man with a great load of leaves. "Oh, kind Mr. Man, please give me some leaves to build a little house for the winter time," cried the piggy. The man was willing to do this. He gave the pig all the leaves he wanted, and then he went on his way. The pig built himself a house of leaves, and was even snugger and warmer than the straw house had been. "How silly my mother was," said the pig, "to tell me to build a brick house. What could be warmer and cozier and safer than this?" And he snugged down among the leaves and was very happy. Presently along came the great wolf, and he knocked at the door. Piggy Wig, let me in," he cried. "I won't by the hair of my chinny chin chin." "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in." The little pig laughed when he heard that, for the walls were thick and he felt secure. "Well then, huff and then puff and then blow my house in." So the wolf huffed and he puffed, and he did blow the house in, and he ate up the little pig that was inside of it. Now the third little pig was the smallest pig of all, but he was a very wise pig, and he meant to do exactly as his mother had told him to do. After he left the forest, he met a man driving a wagon load of straw, but he did not ask for any of it. He met the man with the load of leaves, but he did not ask for any of it. He met a man with a load of bricks, and then he stopped and begged so prettily for enough bricks to build himself a little house that the man could not refuse him. The pig took the bricks and built himself a little red house with them, and it was not an easy task either. When it was done, it was not so soft as the little straw house, and it was not so warm as the little leaf house, but it was a very safe little house. Presently, the old wolf came along and knocked at the door. Rat-tat-tat. "Piggy-wig, piggy-wig, let me in," he called. "I won't by the hair on my chinny chin chin." "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in." "Well then, huff, and then puff, and then blow my house in," answered the pig. So the old wolf huffed and he puffed, and he puffed and he huffed, and he huffed and he puffed, till he almost split his sides, and he just couldn't blow the house in. And the little pig laughed to himself as he sat safe and comfortable inside there. The old wolf saw that there was nothing to be done by blowing, so he sat down and he thought and he thought. Then he said, "Piggy-wig, I know there is a field of fine turnips." "Where?" asked the little pig. "Open the door and I will tell you." No, the little pig could hear quite well with the door closed. "It's just up the road, 3 fields away," said the wolf. "And if you would like to have some, I will come for you at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, and we'll go dig them up together." "At 6 o'clock," said the little pig. "Very well." Then the old wolf trotted off home, licking his lips, and he was well content, for he thought he would have the pig for breakfast the very next day. But the next morning the little pig was up and astir by 5 o'clock. Off he trotted to the turnips, and gathered a whole bagful, and was home again before the old wolf thought of coming. At 6 o'clock the old wolf knocked at the door. "Are you ready to go for turnips, piggy?" he cried. "Ready," answered the pig. "Why, I was up and off to the field an hour ago, and I have all the turnips I want, and I'm boiling them for breakfast." "That's what you did," said the wolf, and then he thought a bit. "Piggy, do you like fine ripe apples?" he asked. Yes, the pig was very fond of apples. "Then I can tell you where to find some." "Where's that?" "Over beyond the hill in the squire's orchard. And if you'll play me no tricks, I will come for you at 5 o'clock tomorrow, and we will go together and gather some." Very well, the pig would be ready. So the wolf trotted off home, and this time he was very sure that he would have a nice, fat little piggy for breakfast the very next morning. The little pig got up at 4 o'clock the next day, and off he started for the orchard as fast as his 4 little feet would carry him. But the way was very long, and the tree was hard to climb. And while he was still up among the branches, gathering apples, the old wolf came trotting into the orchard. The little pig was very much frightened, but he kept very still and hoped, up among the leaves, the wolf would not notice him. The wolf peered about, first up one tree and then up another, and finally he spied the piggy up among the branches. "Why did you not wait for me?" "Oh, I knew you would be along presently." "How soon are you coming down?" "When I have picked a few more apples." The wolf sat down at the foot of the tree, and the pig sat up among the branches, crunching apples and smacking his lips. "Are they good?" asked the wolf, looking up, and his mouth watered. Yes, they were very good. "Could you not throw one down to me?" Yes, the little pig could do that. He picked the biggest, reddest apple he could, and then he threw it. But he threw it far off, and in such a way that it went bounding and rolling down the hill slope. The wolf bounded down the hill after it, and while he was catching it, the little pig climbed down the tree and ran safely home with his basket full of apples. When the old wolf found the pig had tricked him again, he was very angry. He was more determined than ever that he would catch the little pig. He trotted off to the little red house and knocked at the door. "Did you get all the apples you wanted?" asked the wolf. Yes, the little pig had all he wanted, and he was very much obliged to the wolf for telling him about the orchard. "Listen, piggy, there's to be a fine fair over in the town tomorrow," said the wolf. "Wouldn't you like to go?" Yes, the little pig would very much like to go. "Very well," said the wolf. "Then I will come for you at 3:30 tomorrow, and we will go together." "Very well," said the little pig. But long before 3:30 the next day, Piggy was off to the fair, and he took 4 bright silver pieces with him, for he wanted to buy himself a butter churn. It did not take him long to buy the churn, and then he started home again, carrying it on his back. But the wolf had learned a thing or two about the little pig's tricks. He, too, started off for the fair long before 3:30. And it was that the little pig was scarcely halfway home, and had just reached the top of a high hill, when he saw the wolf come trotting up the hill directly towards him. The little pig was terrified. He looked all about, but he could not see any place to hide. He decided the best thing that he could do was to get inside the churn. So he put it down and crept inside of it. But the hill was very steep, and no sooner was the piggy inside the churn than it began to roll down the hill slope, bumpity bumpity bump, over rocks and stones, leaping and bounding like a live thing. The little pig did not know what was happening to him. he began to squeal at the top of his voice. The old wolf was halfway up the hill when he heard the noise. He looked up, and there was a great round thing coming bounding over the rocks straight at him, and squeaking as it came. He gave one look, and his hair bristled with fear, and with a howl he turned tail and ran home as fast as he could. He never stopped till he was safe inside his house and had shut the locked door behind him. There he crouched, trembling and wondering what would happen, but nothing happened. All was quiet, so after a while the wolf ventured out and ran over to the pig's house. "Piggy, Piggy, are you in there?" Yes, the little pig was sitting by the fire roasting apples. "Then listen while I tell you what happened to me on the way to the fair." Then the wolf put his nose close to the crack of the door, and he told the little pig all about the great round squealing thing that had come chasing him down the hill. The little pig laughed and laughed. "And I can tell you exactly what that great squealing thing was. It was a churn I had bought in the fair, and I was inside it." When the old wolf heard this, he was so furious, he determined to have the little pig, whether or no, even if he had to climb up on the roof and down the chimney to get him. He stuck his sharp nails in between the bricks of the house and climbed right up inside of it and onto the roof. Then he climbed up on the chimney and slid down it into the fireplace. But the little pig had heard what he was doing and was ready for him. He had a great pot of boiling water on the fire, and when he heard the wolf slipping and scrabbling down the chimney, he took the lid off the kettle, and plump! The old wolf fell right into the boiling water. Then the little pig clapped the lid tight down over him, and that was the end of the wolf. But the little pig lived on in peace, and plenty forever after. And if any other wolf ever came along to bother him, I never heard of it.